Welcome back to Miniature Game Montage and our first Kings of War coverage. About 55 participants have descended on Dallas, Texas during a COVID year to participate in the Lonewolf GT, one of the great Kings of War tournaments in the US and a stepping stone to the Masters. I was in attendance to film some battle reports, and I look forward to sharing those with you. These reports will not be all at once, so be sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you know when I upload another one. If you're unfamiliar with my style of battle reports, it's all action, but filming during a tournament had challenges as speed is important, with our competitors being on clocks. I'll try to narrate the best I can. In today's matchup, a challenge was issued and the call was accepted. Devlin's Empire of Dust will face off against Tom's League of Rhordia at 2,300 points. The Empire of Dust list contains a horde of skeleton spearmen, 2 regiments of mummies, 2 regiments of skeleton archer cavalry, 2 hordes of enslaved guardians, one with pipes of terror and the other with Sir Jesse's boots of striding, a horde of enslaved guardians archers with blessing of the gods, a monolith, a soul snare, an idol of Shobek, and Sebek the Accursed. 2,300 points in total and 23 unit strength. Over for the League of Rhordia, they have a horde of foot guard, a horde of knights with a brew of strength, 2 troops of mounted scouts, a horde of honor guard with potion of the caterpillar, 3 cheeky volley guns, a duke on ancient, a wizard with inspiring talisman, bane chant, and lightning bolt, 2 more wizards, one on a pegasus with lightning bolt, and one with a boomstick and lightning bolt, a horde of dogs of war, and a battle shrine. Once again, 2,300 points and 21 unit strength. The custom scenario today will be Texas Blizzard. The board will be divided in 4 quarters, and there's a rolling magical blackout each turn in a quarter of the board. When units are in, moving, or shooting through the quarter, there is no flying, and all shooting suffers an additional -1. This includes magic attacks. Victory conditions are based on unit strength fully within 20 inches of your opponent's table edge. There are some bonus objectives for having more regiments in your opponent's deployment zone, if you control more table quarters than your opponent, and if you would have won if it was a normal invade scenario. Let's get right to the action in turn 1, where I showed up fashionably late. And a quick overview of the board as Tom is moving his knights up the center. On the left flank, some mounted scouts have moved forward. Unfortunately for Tom, the blackout is happening in the table quarter where his flyers were placed. Volley guns will be rearranging there to the edge of the forests. Now, a quick note, in each of these games, they will include either a lone wolf or a lone ranger, one more melee based and one is more shooting based, and I will describe stats as we get closer to those. Tom is moving his lone ranger around right now. And as the dogs of war pivot to the right, we are done with movement and go into the shooting phase. And the scouts let loose with 7 bow attacks. They get 1 hit and 1 wound onto those skeletal spearmen, and then moving to the battle shrine, a lightning attack with 6 lightning bolts coming out. And Tom is looking for 5s here, as that battle shrine is in the darkness, and 1 goes through. It does not cause a wound. Lightning continues to crack, and Tom has a lot of it as the wizards start to take shots, needing 5s as they are shooting out of the darkness at those enslaved guardians. That first will miss, and then another will let loose with 3 attacks. 2 of these will go through, and then rolling to damage, needing 3s, and 2 wounds will go onto those enslaved guardians. And switching over to the Empire of Dust for the bottom of 1, the mummies are going to back up, trying to stay out of charge range here in the initial rounds. The skeleton warriors are also going to back up as well. The enslaved guardians rearrange, the lone wolf goes out front. We then see a movement from the idol of Shobek, and then the skeleton archer cavalry both move out front, trying to get into range of shots. And the mummies, they are going to reposition as well on the flank. The monolith fires a surge in the shooting phase onto the skeleton cavalry, and that will make them move 4 inches forward. The first group of archer cav let loose with 14 shots into the enemy lines, but needing 6s due to the darkness that they are in. All of those shots are going to miss. The second group of cavalry with their short bows only going to get 7 shots. Again, needing 6s due to shooting in the darkness. He's going to come across with 2 hits, and then on another 6, he is going to land a wound onto the Lone Ranger. Next, the enslaved archers take shots, 18 of them with elite, and they're going to need 6s. They're targeting the battle shrine here, but he is in the darkness, so once again, 6s will be needed. And it looks like there's going to be 3 1s in this batch of dice, so elite allowing him to re-roll these dice out. Unfortunately, they're not going to convert to any additional hits, so 3 hits will go through, piercing 2, 3s are needed to cause damage, 2 damage going onto the battle shrine. Now, there was also a drain life that went out on his left flank and healing some wounds up over there. Players roll up a d6 to see where the darkness will be placed, and it is up to Devlin to pick a side. He is going to keep it in the same corner that it was in, where Tom's flyers are. And in the top of turn 2, the scouts taking positions on Tom's left flank. We've then got the foot guard moving up the center of the board, the knights along beside them, trying to get into charge range of the Empire of Dust. And on the League's right flank, we're going to see some scouts reposition here, showing their front. The Duke on Ancient is going to move, and the Wizards are going to reposition as well, taking one of them off the base here, as it gets a bit difficult to keep them upright when they're right beside each other. The Lone Ranger makes a move. Tom touches a bunch of his models because that's what he likes to do. And then the Honor Guard are going to tuck up in behind the Foot Guard. And then with a thunderous charge, the cavalry, the knights, are going to charge into the mummies. And back on the left flank, the scouts find their landing spot, and we move into the shooting phase. And up first, the volley guns will start firing. They are half shots, so 6 shots each. There's 18 in total from the 3 of them. They are in the darkness, so -1 to hit, needing 6s. Only 2 go through. They are targeting those enslaved Guardian archers. 2 wounds go through at piercing 2. The Battle Shrine targets the Lone Wolf with 6 lightning shots. 2 hit on these 6s, and then 1 wound goes through at piercing 1 with this other 6. Next up, there's a wizard back there that will let out with 3 lightning attacks at the same target, and it looks like 1 will go through. And then it looks like that will also wound on a 6, 2 wounds onto the Lone Wolf. Over on Tom's left flank, the mounted scouts let loose some arrows at the skeleton spearmen. All will miss. And then lightning bolts continuing to thunder out on his right flank as the wizards take aim at the skeleton archers. The first 3 miss, 6 more come rolling out. It looks like there's going to be 2 hits in there on these 6s. And then rolling to wound, they're pretty low defense, 3, so piercing 1 takes them to anything but 1, and it's going to be 2 wounds. Tom's Lone Ranger then takes shots into the same target. He is elite, so re-rolling some dice back out, he's going to get 3 total hits, and then just needing anything but 2 wound due to piercing, and there's going to be 3 more wounds on those cavalry. And with 5 total wounds, Tom rolls up a nerve check, rolls up a 10. They are dash 15 and taken off the board. And moving into the combat phase, the knights who thundered off the hill now have Thunderous 3, let loose with 32 attacks, get a ton of hits. And they also have the Brew of Strength. So Thunderous 3, Crushing Strength 1. These guys just put in some work, do 21 wounds onto these mummies, and put them on anything but, as their nerve is just dash 18. So rolling that out, he will need to roll this twice due to Inspiring being close by, and that's 1, and that's 2, the mummies taken off the board. And with a quick reform from those knights, we will move over to Devlin's turn 2, and his Lone Wolf will crash into one of the volley guns. And then the skeleton spearmen are going to react to the nearby knights and move in for combat. The enslaved guardians will then make a pivot move, and they are moving towards the side. And then we flip over to Devlin's left flank, where his mummies are going to move up the board. And then his skeleton archer cav, they're going to move up, pivot, move again, and pivot back as they are nimble. And then behind them will come more enslaved guardians. Moving into shooting, the monolith pops off a surge onto the mummies, and they are going to move up 4 inches. The skeleton cav then attempt to pop shots into the Long Ranger. He is an individual, however, making him harder to hit. Shots coming out needing 6s, and 3 hits go through, and then it's only going to be 1 wound on a 5. The Guardian Archers then attempt to pop shots into the Battle Shrine, 18 shots coming out. Numerous hits here. They do get elite, so getting the opportunity to reroll 1s, 3 of those taking place. Got a few more hits that go in. It will be, I believe, 6 in total. And then rolling to wound, it looks like 5 wounds are going to go out, needing 3s and higher. And that's going to be 5 wounds onto that Battle Shrine. The Battle Shrine measures up in range of the Soul Snare, so a Drain Life 9 is going out, needing 5s to connect here as it is in the darkness. 4 will go through, and then it looks like it is going to put 2 more wounds onto that Battle Shrine and take 2 wounds off of himself. Last, we have a heal cast from the Idol of Shobek, needing 4s, and it looks like 4 wounds are going to roll off the Empire of Dust. So with 9 total wounds being on the Battle Shrine, a 5 is needed to pop. It is popped, but a reroll needs to come back out for Inspiring, and it is popped again. A nerve test is also taken for the Lone Ranger, and he is fine. In combat, the Lone Wolf attacks one of the War Machines, getting a lot of hits here. He is Thunder 1, Crush 1, getting a lot of wounds as well. Nerve check immediately taken. First one is a 10, re-rolling for Inspiring, and that War Machine is off the board as well. On the other side of the board, the Skeleton Spearmen are going to launch an attack into the Knights. 30 attacks needing 5s. 11 hits go through, which is not a bad roll, but unfortunately there's no crushing strength on these guys. Defense 5, so 5s is what they will need on the wound roll as well. And the wound rolls hit the deck, and it looks like 5 wounds are going to go through, re-rolling a cocked die back out. And the nerve roll is going to be an 11, which will not do anything against this horde of cavalry. Turn 3 underway. We've got a counter charge from the cavalry here and a charge from one of the scout troops into the flank of those skeleton spearmen. And moving across the board, we'll see another charge from the Dogs of War. And these spearmen are getting into combat with the skeleton cavalry. And then we also have a charge from the other scout team going into the mummy regiment. In other moves, the wizards on the Pegasus are going to move around, and the Lone Ranger is also going to make a move as well, all of them taking positioning on the hill. The Duke on Ancient also positions further up the right flank. The wizard on a horse moves, hoping to potentially get Bane Chant off on this combat going on. And then the infantry unit is going to move up, being mindful of the charge radius of these guardians. The honor guard is going to step back, and we are going to move into the shooting phase. A lot of lightning bolts coming out here at the enslaved guardians. 6 from one wizard on a Pegasus with a boomstick, and 3 from the others, 9 in total. 3 hits go through, 1 wound on this 4. And then continuing action, we'll see a Bane Chant from the wizard that goes off on this 6, and that is going to hit the Dogs of War. And the Lone Ranger is going to take some shots at those Guardians as well. We've got a cocked die here that Tom will re-roll, and that character also has Elite, so we'll re-roll those 1s. And it looks like 4 hits, and re-rolling those out, I believe he is piercing 2, so that would be 3s and 3 wounds going on to those enslaved Guardians. Moving to the center of the board, the volley guns will get half shots, so 6 shots each, 12 in total. We'll need 6s, again, targeting those enslaved Guardians. and there will be no hits on that roll. And we'll take a quick nerd check on those Guardians. They are -17. That 9 will not get it done. And moving into combat, the Mounted Scouts, they will hit on 4s. Several hits going through here. 4 dice roll out to wound, needing 5s. And while 2 wounds go through on the mummies, they are -18, so not going anywhere. We'll move over to the Dogs of War, where 30 attacks will unleash against this skeleton cavalry. And these guys are going to hit on 4s, and then they will be wounding on 2s because they have Crushing 1 from the Bane chant. So just a ton of hits are going to come out here. Wound rolls come out, and 13 are going to be good, and that is going to put them -15 on Snake Eyes to stay around in this game. So nerve check coming out, that is going to be good. And checking Inspiring, going to re-roll that back out. And the result is a 9, so that's another unit of Skeleton Cavalry off the board. The Dogs of War will quickly reform their lines, and moving to the other flank where the Knights and the Scouts have charged into these skeleton warriors here with spears. And we're going to do the Knights first. They get 32 attacks in the front, and they do not have Thunderous Charge here. But with the Brew of Strength, they do have Crushing 1, so hitting on 4s, and they will be wounding on 3s. So rolls coming out to wound, 9 total wounds going through, and then we will see the Scouts. They will charge in from the side, and they will get 7 attacks twice, so 14 attacks in total because they are coming from the flank, and they will hit on 4s. And dice hit the deck, 14 shots going out. It looks like 10 of them are going through. That's a great roll needing 4s. And then he will need 4s again. There's no Crushing Strength on these guys. And that is going to be quite a few wounds that go through as well. 7 total damage going through, and we're going to nerve check these guys, -22, and that's going to be off the table. They are within Inspiring, so we're going to re-roll that back out, and once again, they pop. And a quick view of the board as we go to the Empire of Dust. For the bottom of 3, the mummies will disengage. They are going to pivot. They do have the Dogs of War in their front arc, and they declare a charge, getting into contact just barely. And when this happens, the Enslaved Guardians are going to charge into the flank of the Scouts. The Monolith is going to reposition, and a quick regen roll on the mummies. 2 dice come out, both are failed. Devlin's Lone Wolf is behind enemy lines hunting war machines. The Enslaved Guardians will announce a charge into the Knights, and Sebek is going to announce a charge into the Mounted Scouts. In addition, the Idol of Shobek is going to announce a charge into the Foot Guard. The Enslaved Guardian Archers are going to take a surge from the Monolith, only getting 3, going forward 3 inches. It's time to start making his way across the board. A Drain Life comes out from the Soul Snare, targeting the Wizard that is mounted on the horse, needing 5s. 3 of these will go through, and then 1 wound on 3s. And then shots from the Enslaved Archers. They are shooting at half shots, and not very good hit roll here. They do have Elite, so re-rolling those back out. 2 go through, and then 2 wounds. Nerve check coming out, needing a 6 as he's getting +1 from Dread from the Lone Wolf. That's 6 + 3 is 9. The Dread makes it a 10. That will be a waiver on that spellcaster. Over on the other flank, Sebek will land a hit on this 5, and then rolling to wound. I believe he just needs a 3 here, and he fails. Contemplating a Lone Wolf reroll, but not going to use it. Over in the combat phase, the Enslaved Guardians attack first. They launch 18 attacks, hitting on 3s. Devlin has a pretty good roll here, and they are crushing 2, so defense 5 on those Knights. 3s again are needed. And he rolls up for 8 total wounds here, going to go ahead and check the nerve, and that is not going to get it done. The Knights will remain. In the middle, the Idol of Shobek, he hits on 3s with 10 attacks. He is crushing 2, and that'll be 5 wounds, but a Horde with 21-23, they're not going anywhere. Next up, the Lone Wolf is going to launch a ton of attacks as he is into the side of a war machine. down in Tom's deployment area and easily going to knock out a bunch of hits, get a ton of wounds, and needs snakes on the nerves, and that War Machine is off the board. And then over on Devlin's left flank, the action was getting kind of quick here, so it was tough to keep up with. But he's only going to do 2 wounds from his mummies. They had 12 attacks hitting on 4s. They are crushing 2, but the nerve check fails, and they remain in place. And then into the flank, these enslaved guardians are going to hit these mounted scouts, and they are going to get 18 attacks twice. So hitting on 3s with these attacks, and then with crushing 2 against a nerve 10/12, we can just go ahead and remove those mounted scouts off the board, and the enslaved guardians will reform. And a quick overview of the board as we get ready for turn 4, going over to the League of Rhordia. We're going to see a charge from the Duke. He is going into the flank of those mummies. We got lasers popping all over the place. Wizards are moving into charges with the enslaved guardians. The Lone Ranger's stepping up from behind. Tom's just touching his models and moving things around. The next thing you know, you get charged in the flank, and then you thank him for it because he's such a nice guy. We do have a countercharge from the Foot Guard. The Dogs of War are going to rearrange up onto this hill so we know what they're after. And then we'll see a countercharge from the Knights going into the enslaved guardians on Tom's right flank. In the shooting phase, the volley gun takes aim at the Soul Snare, which is stealthy, hitting on 5s. Looks like he's going to pick out 4 dice here and re-rolling those back out with piercing 2. The Soul Snare's defense 4. 1 wound will go through. A lightning bolt 6 follows from the wizard with the boomstick, and needing 4s, and it looks like 4 of these will go through, and then that is piercing 1, and it looks like Tom is going to get 3 more wounds onto the enslaved guardians. Another lightning bolt cracks from another wizard into the enslaved guardians, 3 shots this time, hitting on 4s. 1 will go through, and piercing 1, it will wound. And in a great gesture of sportsmanship, Devlin reminded Tom that he has not shot his Lone Ranger yet. 5 more shots will be coming out. He is elite, so re-rolling 1s. And all of these are going to hit, again, targeting these enslaved guardians. He's going to wound on all of these as well. And this is essentially going to put those enslaved guardians on double 1s for their nerve roll to stick around. And with a quick roll and a re-roll, they are off the board. Great sportsmanship there from Devlin. So we now have a lot of attacks going into these mummies. The Duke on Ancient is into the flank, so he will roll 14 total dice. He hits on 3s, crushing 2s, so that'll put them on 3s. And then you're going to have 30 some odd attacks coming from the front from the Dogs of War, and they will hit on 4s. So it's safe to say that we can go ahead and nerve check these mummies, and they are going to fail the first, re-roll due to inspiring, and off the board. Over in the middle of the board, the Foot Guard launched 25 attacks at the Idol of Shobuk and gets a ton of hits here on 3s. However, they do need 6s to wound, and he gets none. 7 attacks from the Mounted Scouts into Sebek result in 4 hits and 2 wounds. So a roll for nerve check here. We do have a cocked die, so we're going to roll that back out. It fails. He sticks around. And then moving on to the larger combat where the enslaved guardians were charged by the Knights. I believe this was actually a countercharge. 32 attacks hitting on 3s. He gets a ton of hits here. And then they do have the Brew of Strength, so it's going to take them down to 4s to wound. And he is going to get an absolute ton of wounds as well, something like 9 or 10. And then the nerve check once is good, re-rolling that out for inspiring. And if it wasn't good the first time, it's certainly good on the second. Bottom of turn 4, the Monolith moves around doing Monolith stuff. And then the Guardian Archers are going to charge in beside the Idol, going after the Foot Guard. And we're about to have a good combat here. The Soul Snare is going to cast Drain Life onto the Wizard. And that's going to be 9 dice looking for 4s. And gets a handful of hits here, and then he will get 2 wounds out of that, and that takes him up to 5, so a nerve check here on that wizard, and it's going to be double 6s here for Devlin, and has to re-roll due to inspiring, and he gets it again. The enslaved Guardian archers launch out with 18 attacks. They are hindered, so they will need 5s to hit. And he gets a ton of rolls here. They do have elite, so re-rolling some 1s. And an absolute great roll, needing 5s. The roll to wound, however, needs 4s, I believe. And only 4 of these are going to go through. The idol then attacks as well with his 10 attacks, hitting on 3s. And then he is crushing 3. So essentially anything but. That's going to stack some more wounds back on. The foot guard go to 14 total wounds, and he is getting dread from the nearby lone wolf, and he rolls out just enough to get to 21, and that makes it a waiver on the foot guard. The lone wolf attacks into the flank of the honor guard, needing 3s, gets 4 hits, needing 3s again to wound, gets 3 wounds. That's going to be 3 total wounds there. The nerve check needing boxcars. They're not going anywhere. And a quick overview of the board as we move into turn 5. Tom will start with movement. Both of his wizards on Pegasus are going to move around on that right flank, getting in line of sight of that soul snare. The Dogs of War are going to announce a charge into the monolith. The Duke on Ancient moves up in support, and the mounted scouts on the left flank are going to reform while there is a double charge from the foot guard as well as the honor guard into the Guardian archers. In the shooting phase, the volley gun will get half shots into the soul snare. Looks like it is going to hit twice and do 1 wound. And then all of the lightning bolts are going to go into the soul snare as well. And needing 6s here, only 2 hits, and it looks like 2 more wounds will go through. And Tom rolls up for nerve, gets a 9. That is not going to be enough. It's a -15. The Dogs of War unleash a bucket of shots in the melee phase against the monolith. They hit on 4s, but unfortunately for them, they will need 5s to do wounds. So after all these dice are rolled out, it looks like only 3 wounds are going against that monolith. It is a -17, so nothing can happen. On the other flank, a ton of attacks going into the hero will easily remove him. The knights are going to push forward, rolling a d6. And then in the center of the board, the foot guard as well as the honor guard take out the enslaved archers, and they will reform. Over for the Empire of Dust in movement, the soul snare is going to move up the center of the board. And then we're going to see the monolith disengage, and it's going to shuffle to the left, just getting out of line of sight from the Duke there. Shooting and combat coming up. The soul snare does drain life into the foot guard and takes wounds off of the monolith, reviving it back to full. And then in melee, the lone wolf is going to launch attacks into the foot guard and essentially put them on snakes to stick around. And they do not. That unit will pop in the center of the board, starting to open up. The Idol of Shobek puts 5 wounds onto the honor guard, taking them up to 7. They are getting dread, so it is 8. Nerve roll coming out is going to be failed, and they are going to be just fine. And moving into turn 6, lots of movement going around here from the Wizards. It's all about getting into objectives and scoring positions at this point. The majority of the board has opened up. A charge is going to be declared from the Knights going into the flank of the Idol. And after shooting into the Soul Snare and the flank charge here, that Idol will be taken off the board. The Knights choosing to reform, and the Honor Guard moving up as well, getting into scoring positions. Devlin is certainly fighting this one out to the end, and the Monolith will disengage. It's going to reposition, and then the Lone Wolf is going to charge into the Knights. They do have a lot of damage on them, so potentially taking them off the board and negating that scoring opportunity. So a Drain Life goes out, I believe, onto the Cavalry. That will restore some wounds back to the Monolith, and then combat from the Lone Wolf. There's not a whole lot of attacks here, but only needs to do a few wounds. And it looks like 2 wounds will go through. Devlin is going to roll pretty high on the nerve and end up popping that unit, removing them from play. And with that, our first game will come to a close. A hearty handshake from both of these competitors. Tom will score 4 points on the scenario and 5 bonus points for a total of 9. Devlin did not record any points in this game, and that will result in a 15-5 victory for Tom. So I really hope you enjoyed this tournament battle report. Again, it was a bit different because it was in a tournament setting and it was tough to get pictures and things like that. Tom would go on to finish in the top 10 with a total score of 209, and Devlin would finish not far behind him at 205, and he would also win the Jesse Cornwell Sportsman Award. I'll have another game posted soon as I make my way to the top tables and a showdown between those that would eventually be champions. See you next time.